In this video, we're going to talk about the new balance coming soon in the mid-season patch and a leak of the new character that is coming to the game. So there's a lot of crazy stuff we're going to talk about. So do me a solid and smash that like and subscribe, and let's get into it. Now, the first thing that we're going to talk about is game balance, and this is what they have to say about it. Quote, game balance this season continues to be in great shape. With Season 5, we saw Junker Queen's dominant reign over the tank role even out, making for a more diverse selection of tank heroes with Winston and D.Va on the rise. Now, I actually will say that the tank role is pretty balanced out. There's a lot of viable options. I think most of them are viable, especially in ranked. You can play a lot of them, with a couple notable exceptions being Doomfist and Roadhog. The latter, Roadhog, is going to be getting a rework and more changes down the line. Doomfist, I do think that he would deserve some amount of buffs, but I do understand that when some tanks become better, other tanks become worse, and right now, honestly, the meta's pretty balanced, so I don't mind it. There's a lot of diversity, and I think they're right on the money there. Next off, they talk about damage heroes, and they say this, quote, damage heroes notably saw a shift in play rate when the previously popular picks like Tracer and Hanzo being overtaken by Genji and Cassidy. Now, it's kind of interesting to me here because I have no idea what rank they're talking about. Like, are they just talking overall play rate? Because this is not really transparent enough for me to understand exactly what is happening. Yes, Genji really saw a spike in pick rate because he did get a tiny buff. That buff wasn't enough to make Genji better. It's really just Genji mains will find any reason to lock Genji. Like, you give us anything, you give us a new skin, you give us a small buff, we'll lock this character even if he really shouldn't be locked. And I also am very curious about Genji's overall pick rate across the ranks. Just because he's seeing a ton of play in one rank doesn't mean he's good overall. So I do think that not knowing where these stats are coming from doesn't really allow us to know as viewers what these stats really mean when they're saying one character is overtaking another in pick rate. Now, I actually am surprised that Tracer and Hanzo fell down relatively. I mean, maybe that is probably more true in the lower ranks of play because I do think it's easier to get value out of Cassidy. Although I do think that Hanzo is like almost the same in power level, and I'm surprised that his pick rate declined. Maybe the perception of the character matters a bit more than the power of the character. That can definitely affect how much a character is being played. But especially with the most recent little tweaks to Cassidy where they nerfed him slightly more, I do think that overall the DPS balance is pretty okay right now. I think it's actually fine. Nothing's crazy out of whack, although there's still a couple of things that need to be tweaked, of course, but for the most part, it's not like there's one DPS that's just like far and away the best thing right now. Next up, they said support is seeing a notable increase in both Brig and Lifeweaver team compositions as well. They follow all of this up by saying, earlier this week, we pushed a small balance update to fine-tune Cassidy, Mei, and Lifeweaver after they received some significant adjustments to their abilities at the start of the season. They found that Cassidy's magnetic grenade was slightly too easy to land. Mei's overall effectiveness actually dropped with the new changes as she traded damage for more slowing utility, and Lifeweaver's impact was much greater than before, adding to the damage. They also take note that they're trying to improve player control over aiming Thorn Volley. Remember way back when Lifeweaver dropped, I made a video talking about how Lifeweaver needs to be able to do effective damage, and before he just couldn't. It's so important that a support isn't just a heal bot, isn't just a utility bot. They need to be able to contribute to the fight or affect breakpoints in some meaningful way. And in his past state, Lifeweaver could just not do that, and now they are slowly making it better and better. More consistent damage, increasing the damage, and now they're looking to increase the player control over Thorn Volley. It's all gonna kind of come around to what we talked about, where a character needs to have more uptime, needs to add to the fight with damage, in addition to having powerful pieces of utility. That's kind of the way that Overwatch 2 supports need to be if they want to beat the status quo. Otherwise, why would you ever pick a support over like Ana or Kiriko or Zen? Now, they also talk about further balance changes coming in the mid-season patch that is just around the corner, where they're shifting power from both Torb and Symmetra away from their turrets and into the rest of their kit, which honestly makes a lot of sense when you have seen the dev posts that they posted in the past, showcasing that Torb and Sim have insanely high win rates in the metal ranks of play. And I do think that it is better to get rid of some of that innate or inherent value and make it so you have to think about how you're using the kit. You're not getting a whole bunch of value for free. because players should not be just getting destroyed by a Torb in Metal Rank just because they're not on Torb, right? Or they're not on Sim. These characters shouldn't get that much value automatically. Otherwise, you end up in a situation where the best way to climb out of low ranks is just to lock builders, and then you climb, but then you're not encouraged to learn how to play the game or learn how to play other characters that have higher skill floors and higher skill ceilings. So yeah, I definitely do think that this is going to be a good change, although I'm curious how they're going to execute it. Next up, they're also going to be improving the control over Sojourn's railgun primary fire spread, which I'm going to be honest, kind of confuses me a little bit. I don't really know what this fully means, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. They're also increasing the frontline capability of Reinhart and Orisa, which is looking like some slight amount of buffs to the survivability of these two characters, which I think is fine. Definitely not necessary. I think you could nerf some other tanks to kind of accommodate, but I think it's perfectly fine and reasonable. We did talk about this in our buffs and nerfs tier list that we posted a while back, where many of y'all said that Rein should have probably gotten a slight amount of buffs, so I could see that. And then last up, slight adjustments to weaken Zenyatta's Discord Orb ability and several others. So Zen is getting a nerf officially. It's finally freaking happening. I hope that they're doing it in a way that doesn't make the character weaker at taking 1v1s or weaker against any of the squishy cast. I just think that the ability to just keep a perma orb on like a Reinhardt all game, and then you as a tank player have to deal with that all game, just permanently taking a giant chunk of damage. Not a very fun experience from the tank's perspective. And I do think that you can kind of compensate reducing Discord Orb power to like increase his power in some other ways. I imagine they'll do that. I don't imagine they're just gonna flat nerf Discord Orb and do nothing else, but we'll have to wait and see. And they also do mention and several others, which means that there's probably gonna be some other balance tweaks coming in the mid-season. So I'm really interested with all these kind of little changes coming through. So far we have Torb, Symmetra, Sojourn, Rein, Orisa, and Zenyatta all confirmed, in addition to the Thor volley changes that they probably will also push through. And there's several changes that are kind of waiting in the wings, like the rework to Roadhog, that we're gonna have to wait and see when that fully goes through. Now, last up, I did want to talk about the new hero that we actually got a little more snippets of what this character can do. This is the picture of the character. Don't forget, this character is a support character, and while we don't 100% know anything about what this character can do, we do know that she gets her powers from the sun. So that doesn't really give us anything, but it is a little interesting to know more about this hero. And as a final thing, they introduced Genesis, which is an Overwatch mini-series show that literally looks like Overwatch the anime that is coming to YouTube in 3 parts starting July 6th. And honestly, I'm really excited to get lore in any way. It's been forever. I felt like the Overwatch story has been completely stagnant and hasn't been moving forward. It's like stuck in time. So I'm really excited about this, honestly. I'm really looking forward to being able to see more of the lore, and the trailer looks really, really cool. Especially after Arcane, which was based on the League of Legends and Riot universe. I'm super excited to see what Overwatch is going to cook up. I really hope it delivers and it's not just like some rinse and repeat of basically everything we've seen in other shows. We're gonna have to wait and see. I'm really, really curious. But let me know, what change are you most interested in? What stat are you most surprised about? And what are you most excited about in the mid-season patch or in balance in general? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time.